Welcome back to the Producer Podcast Highlights. I'm your host, Micah Versman, and today we have another special compilation episode of the show. So without further ado, let's get started. Today's episode of the Producer Podcast features another question from Season 1 of the show. Today we're sitting down and talking with those producers about what's one piece of advice they would give to somebody just getting started in the film industry. Up first, we're joined by Matthew Jordan, producer on the feature film Counter Column.
Don't do it all yourself and just do it. Reality of the producer's job is making a film happen and doing anything they have to make it happen. So essentially, if you're a one-man band and you're camera operator, you're director, everything, you're also the producer. The true joy of being a producer comes when you get other people to do all the other jobs. Surrender your creative vision, surrender your expectations. It's going to be hard working with people. Let them have creative liberty. You can't be a control freak. You can't be micromanaging. Your life's going to be miserable. You have to trust people. And yeah, they're going to make mistakes, just like you're going to make mistakes. But a bigger mistake than them making a mistake is you not letting them make a mistake. You need to have the faith in them to let them learn as well. And so it's when you get a group of people together to fill in these positions, even if they don't know what they're doing, it's your job to tell them what they're doing. I remember looking up on Wikipedia, film jobs, film crew jobs. I read Wikipedia. That was the extent of my film crew position knowledge was Wikipedia. So list out all the positions you think you could use in whatever project you're going to come up on, and don't, try to limit it, but don't go too big. And, start small and just try to get friends to fill in those positions. And I remember doing a short barn band. I ended up filling in for the lighting engineer because I couldn't find someone who could do our lighting. But I was still producing, So as a producer, you just kind of you're ready to fill in where you need to fill in. On Counter Column, I needed to be an extra in basic training, so I shaved my head and I was an extra in basic training. That was not an ideal. That I don't recommend that to anyone producing a film. But as a producer, your job is to serve. Your job is to make it so that the director can have the creative vision so they can do their job. It's not about you and what you want to happen. It's about what he wants to happen. Your job is to solve problems. It's literally coming to set and waiting for a problem to happen and then solving it. And so it's exciting. It's just different than your glamour job of filmmaking. But it's a really needed position. And so that's what I say. Don't do it all yourself. That's like the worst thing you can do. As a producer, your job is to basically work yourself out of a job. You're planning it all. You're getting it all set, and then you should press a button and watch it all happen. Like if you can just show up to set and watch it all happen, that's the best.
Now we're pleased to welcome back Jared O'Flaherty. Jared is the producer on the hit TV show Vindication, which is currently streaming its second season.
I would tell them, I want to see what you can make with what you have right now at your current skill level. I just want to see it. Go make it. Don't sit around and wait for the next class or the next book or the next, $10,000 or whatever. Just go make the best you can right now and let me see that. Because then we can see where you need to grow, and see where you're at. But what I see a lot of times is people want to sit around and talk about it and I want to get into filmmaking, If you have a phone that's been made in the last 10 years, then you can be a filmmaker, It might be action figures on your desk. It might be a selfie of yourself, whatever, But you don't have to get into filmmaking. You can already be one, and let's see where you're at, and then you can start developing these other skill sets. So show me where you're at. Do something. Don't talk about it.
Up next, we have Katherine Johnson of Sheepshed Entertainment.
Well, if someone is about to make something, I will celebrate with them. You can do it. If someone has just finished something, Yay, you did it. There's a huge like grace and just joyous celebration with each other because it's such a hard task to make film. So I would say on the one hand, I would reassure like, yes, this is really hard. Everything is going to go wrong. You may shoot the whole movie and the power goes out and your hard drive dies. Oh, bummer. I mean, like everything is going to go wrong. But then with that slice of encouragement, I would say ground yourself in why you're making your movie, because ultimately eternity is not going to, we're not going to look back in eternity and say, oh man, that movie really changed my life or changed the world. We're called to be obedient. We're called to follow Christ, to act Christ-like in all situations. So it's more when everything is falling apart around you, how can you react in such a way that will give God glory, even if that means, oh, my whole project is dead. So, because God is just way more interested in your heart than anything that you put on screen, because he doesn't need anything but our obedience. So, on the I think that's what I would say. Everything's going to go wrong. Focus on Christ, because that is everlasting. Your soul is what's going to last, but your film is just going to be a piece of straw. So, that does not sound encouraging, but oh well.
It doesn't, but it's so true. Like, I've definitely had projects like that, or you even look back and what was the biggest thing in your life at the time. Now you're almost embarrassed to show it to anybody.
Yes. People can like, oh, it's my baby. Well, if you've written it, especially produced it or directed it, one of those three, like it's like your it really is like your brainchild, because you've said this originated, if it's story-wise, like within me, I saw it all the way through completion, whether or not it fits what was in your head originally, like this is still a finished project. So my typical advice to people who have not made a film is just please make a film. And then my advice, if you've made a film, is please make another film, because if you get too stuck in the embarrassment or the oh no, or it just took too much work, like if you really want to be a filmmaker, just produce, like just flat out produce. And what I do is I tend to make every third project is one I actually care about. So I make 2 projects that are to practice something technical or just to work on something, whatever that something is. I pick something and I'm like, I need to work on this as a director or as an actor, or as a writer, as whatever. I'm going to do that. I'm going to practice that. And then I make one that I really care about. And I'm very much, sometimes I feel alone on that little hill of just make lots of films. But my point is not to make lots of films. It's that you should be progressing. And sometimes progressing looks like, oh, that movie was not as good as the last one. But as you continue making them, then you see your ladder stepping up, and it's not just like...
Yes.
Now we're pleased to welcome from season 2 of the Producer Podcast, Aaron Van Manen. Aaron works at Good Era, a commercial film production company located in Northeast Iowa.
I guess I would go back to what we were just talking about, where look for others for inspiration. I feel like at any level, that is a viable thing to be doing, where even if you're the top of the top, I'm sure Martin Scorsese looks to others for inspiration and ways to do things differently. And I think that's just such an important thing, where there's so many incredible people doing incredible projects and making things happen with even these smaller crews. I mean, we're seeing movies that are premiering at South by Southwest where they have a micro budget and they're able to pull off a feature film, and things like that are inspiring, where even though you might not have all of the resources or the people that you think might be like the standard, or what you need, what people are telling you, oh yeah, you need all of this to succeed and do things well, that there are so many things that you can achieve and pull off just with who you have and the resources that you have, that really incredible things can happen with just the things that you have in front of you and the people that you work with. And I guess that would be my advice to people who are just starting, to not be discouraged by whatever situation you're in, because you can make great things happen.
Continuing on with our season 1 guest, we have Hannah Bartlett. Hannah is the producer at Bartlett Idea Co., a creative agency that focuses on commercial and promotional films.
I would say to anybody who, is just getting started in producing, I guess would be to put others first. And I know we talked about this a minute ago, but just you're really helping to serve the director's vision, and you're also serving your crew in a lot of ways. And that's something that I've really had to learn and grow in, and I'm still definitely growing in, is the concept of just being able to think of others first and be there for them is huge, no matter what job you're working in. But I think especially as producer, you're the one who's leading the team. You know, you're planning everything out and how it's going to go, and making sure that you're able to make others feel appreciated, whether that's just giving them a thank you card when it's done, or making sure they have their favorite snacks available, right? So those details, just thinking of others and helping to help to tell the director's story through that.
And wrapping up this special compilation episode of the show, we have Sarah Burnett. Sarah is the producer at Realcast Productions, a promo and commercial film production company.
So my one piece of advice is you can never do too much pre-production. And that was especially true on the Ellerslie project for me. I just realized, like, there is no question that is too much to ask right now. You don't have to, if you're working with a venue or whatever, you don't have to ask all of them in an email, but just to have a list of all that information you need and on your Scout or whatever to work through that very thoroughly. But you can never have too much pre-production. And then if you've just finished a project, I would highly recommend writing down your process and continuing to add to it, because I feel like producing, yes, there are standard ways to do it, but the most important thing is that you have the confidence to properly run a budget and a schedule and hire people and make people happy. And so whatever those things are for you, whether it's a steak dinner at the end of the project or candy on set or a good night's sleep in a hotel or an outing or whatever, like, find you as a producer and have those marks about you. One of our things is when we wrap a project, we love to take our crew to a nice dinner. Like, maybe we were rushed on set, maybe we were getting through that, but that's one of our things that we love to do, to just kind of add a nice capstone. Even if it's a promo project and it was 4 days or 3 days, like, just to kind of end it on a really high note. So, like, whatever those things are that make producing work for you and really fun for you and manageable, like, save all those documents. And then everything's a template for me. Once I've done it once, it's a template and I use it again. And just, if you can really do that, you can improve. The first project I produced for Realcast Productions, I did in a notes document on an iPad mini. Like, I had no call sheet, no official schedule. We just sat down in the office when we showed up on campus, and I just took notes like crazy and then just kept adding and adjusting that schedule. Now I use official call sheets and official schedules and do some of that ahead of time. But the fundamentals of how I managed a project haven't really changed. And so find those things, and then also just keep learning. Like, there's lots of great producers, and if you could ever get the opportunity, to be some type of line producer or just work in the producing department, you'll learn so much from those experiences. That's how I've learned. I've got to work under producers on a couple occasions, and I love learning their processes, because then you can take those home and just become better.
And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Producer Podcast Highlights. Stay tuned for more Producer Podcast highlights, as well as news on upcoming new episodes and seasons of the show. Until then, make sure to subscribe to the Producer Podcast, and thanks for listening.